We are back. And today we are going to be talking about the big 5 mistakes that authors make building a book business. I'm Melody Ann, your host. Have you heard of community publishing? This is Author Nation is a community-based publishing solution. We help you build a roadmap. And then you come into the community and we give you the accountability, the structure, and the inspiration to actually finish your book. So grab our planning checklist. It is at authornation.online. Okay, it is also in the description. Our guest, Brett Ridgway, is the author of the book Mistakes Authors Make and 6 other books focused on authors, speakers, and information marketers. He is also the founder of Ship Your Books, a company that works behind the scenes providing product fulfillment services for authors and speakers and others. He is a frequent guest on podcasts, virtual summits, and conferences on subjects relating to authors, speakers, and information marketers. Let's welcome Brett Ridgway. Hi, Brett. How are you today?
Hey, Melody, and I am doing great, and I hope you are too.
I am fabulous. Thank you so much. So I want to talk about the information marketing world. What is that? What is that exactly? Like, how big and expansive is that? And what is your role in that world?
Sure. So let me give you a little backstory here, Melody Ann, so give a frame of reference for folks. So I actually put up the first portal website in the plant engineering and maintenance market back in 1995. So, over 25 years ago. And so back in those days, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. I was selling, VHS tapes and books aimed at that particular niche. So plant engineers, maintenance techs, etc. And around the same time frame as I put that site up, I was asked to handle the backroom sales table at an internet marketing conference by a guy, and that was back in 1999. And I honestly didn't even know what backroom sales meant, but I hadn't been to Las Vegas before, so it sounded good to me, so I went out and did that. And as a result, I got to know a lot of speakers in the industry. And when they found out I was doing product fulfillment for my own website that had been put up a few years before, they cornered me at an event and basically said, hey, will you do some product fulfillment for us because it's not really the best use of our time. So that's when the company Speaker Fulfillment Services was formed, and of which Ship Your Books is one of the brands underneath that umbrella. So I've been involved in information marketing for over 25 years now, between having my own site selling products and then getting involved with others, providing fulfillment services for them, speaking at conferences on the subjects that we talked about, and just kind of had a behind the scenes view of the whole industry. But information marketing essentially is anything related to, if you're an expert and have something you want to share with the market, with people that can benefit them, could be as a speaker, could be as an author, could be as a runner of a membership site, could be as a coach. I mean, there's a number of different things that fall under the information marketing umbrella. But if you have expertise you're wanting to share out there and you're putting it out in some form, whether it's via a book or a home study course or whatever, you are an information marketer.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And so was that your start in publishing, back of the room sales?
Actually, it was. So because I was handling the back of the room, and I did that at about 150 events over the course of a 15-year period, I wrote what I would call a tips book, and it was called View from the Back, 101 Tips for Event Promoters Who Want to Dramatically Increase Back of the Room Sales, because there was all sorts of little things that I saw happen at events that could totally derail the presentation of the speaker. And in the world that I come from, Melanie, and most of the speakers were platform sellers, I would call them. Mm-hmm. And so they would deliver their, 80 minutes of content, and then they do a pitch of some type for some back-end product or service that they offered. And so I came up through that world, and because of that unique behind-the-scenes perspective, I saw them do some stupid things and some brilliant things, and it's what led to that first book, View from the Back, because, again, there's so many little things that can trip up a presentation and your ability to effectively not only build rapport with your audience, but also effectively sell from the platform that event promoters and speakers need to know, just because a lot of the things that were happening are easily preventable. And if you don't know what you don't know type thing. And so that's where that whole tips book came about.
Right. So you started out selling and then watching them try to sell from, like, doing backroom sales, watching them sell from the stage. Then you wrote a book about selling from the back of the room, just from all the experience. And does this book also talk about how to do the stage sales, like how to what you're doing on the stage that helps the back room sales?
There's a few tips that definitely apply to that in the book, but it is not a how to be an effective platform seller book. I don't want to misrepresent it in any way. So it's about all the little side factors that can come into play that will impact things, but the focus isn't on, okay, here's how you do the stack or build up your products for the audience so they want to, get that table rush type situation where everybody's back there throwing their credit cards at you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And since you do shipping for authors, I really want to just touch on that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges for authors who want to ship their own books rather than just selling through other distribution channels?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I honestly think that initially authors maybe should do their own fulfillment so they understand what's involved in the process. But the critical question you need to ask yourself as an author or any business person is, what is my time really worth? I mean, if you think your time's worth $50 an hour or $100 an hour or 500 or whatever it may be, and you're spending your time doing, $10 an hour tasks like, packing up books and running to the post office, then you're really hurting the growth of your own business. And so you got to figure out when that time to get that off your plate is so that you can focus on the more important things like, writing that next book or getting on a podcast as a guest or whatever it might be marketing wise to build your business. So it's all a time value question essentially. And obviously handling your own fulfillment is just, one of dozens of things that an author needs to take a look at and decide if they're going to do it themselves or whether they need to have somebody else do that. I have a good friend named Alex Mondosian, who's a well-known internet marketer. And he says, pay other people to do things that you have to work at, but they play at.
Nice. So. Yeah, nice. Now I know some authors don't even do any of their own shipping. All they do is sell through, set up distribution centers like Amazon, or they try to get into Barnes and Noble and whatnot. What are the benefits of doing your own shipping for authors?
Well, I mean, I think obviously Amazon's the biggest, the 800-pound gorilla in the room as far as book sales and all that go. But I honestly think that an author is crazy to sell their book only through Amazon, especially if they have any kind of platform at all. And here's why. Number one, Amazon's going to take their hefty 45 to 55% cut of the book sale off the top. Yeah. Number two, and maybe even more importantly, it's Amazon's customer and not your customer. I mean, they don't pick up the phone and say, hey, Melanie, and you just sold a copy of this book to so-and-so by Amazon. Here's their information, go market them something else. So if you're having somebody do the fulfillment for you other than Amazon, or you're doing it yourself, then you have the ability, number one, to capture that customer information. Number two, you have the ability to include other things in your book shipments. So if you have a higher ticket program, a coaching program or something, you could include a sales flyer, or you could include a bookmark or other branding type pieces of yours that you want to, put in their hands so that they remember you. And get that information out there in their hands, where Amazon doesn't let you stick inserts in the book shipments and all that, so it's their customer. You can't upsell them anything else directly via your shipment, and it doesn't help you build your platform at all. You make far more money if you have the ability to drive them to your own website to buy that book. Again, offer author signed copies via your own website if you're handling your own fulfillment. So there's certain perks and things that you can do if you're handling it yourself versus sending everybody to Amazon. You're nuts if you just send everybody to Amazon, honestly.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So I really we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes, but I just wanted to very briefly touch on view from the back, because you've said you've spent a lot of time kind of selling books from the back of the room. And I know a lot of authors are also speakers, and this is what they do, right? So they go to the back of the room. So tell us a little bit about this book and what people can expect and how it's organized. Just because I think this is actually a really important piece for authors.
Well, it is, as I said, a tips book. So it's very short chapters. I'm a big believer, and we'll talk about that later, probably about consumability of books and all that. But it's, essentially, 101, almost 1 page, 1 to 2 page tips on here's a factor that influences the results from the platform. And so here's what you should do or not do to make that not an issue. I mean, your success as an author or a speaker is as much about what you do, but maybe even more important, what you don't do. And so I think you need to remember that in anything you're thinking about. And put what you have out there, but do it in a way that gets people to consume your information and be able to take full advantage of it. So the 101 Tips book is exactly that. It's a tip book. You can read the whole thing in an hour. I mean, but you can apply the things over the course of your speaking career to help you out get better results.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you give us maybe 1 or 2 tips?
1 or 2 tips. All right. I mean, these are going to sound simplistic, maybe, but one of the biggest things I would caution speakers to do is think long and hard about whether you ever want to give up control of the microphone during your speaking slot. Typically at an event, you're going to have, anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes for a presentation. And some people like to do Q&A. Well, if you're giving up control of the microphone, then it can be hard to get it back. Now, I've seen people do Q&A effectively, but I've also seen it really bog down and they lose the flow with the audience. So when they get to that sales close, they don't get nearly the results they had hoped to. And in a similar way, a lot of speakers who are selling from the platform like to do audience testimonials as part of their presentation or whatever. Well, again, if you're handing over control of that microphone to somebody else, you better damn well know what they're going to say and how long they're going to have to say it and all that, because somebody starts to rambling, and then next thing you know, you've totally lost control of the room, and you're lucky if you can get control of the microphone back, honestly, and get things back on course. So again, think long and hard about giving control of the microphone up. I mean, another simple one that people don't think about is, how many meetings have you been to, Melody Ann, where every time somebody comes in and out of the room, the door bangs loudly and everybody turns their head to see who's coming in or out, and they're not focusing on the speaker at all? Well, easily solvable. Tape that push bar shut, throw a towel over the top of the door to minimize, the interruption that it causes. I mean, simple things. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do in terms of controlling your speaking environment that most people don't give a lot of thought to. And you want to certainly control that speaking environment as much as possible. I mean, a third one I might throw out there is, I would advise any speaker to not try to do live internet as part of their presentation. I've seen too many times where, for whatever reason, the internet bogged down, killed their presentation. And it also puts an unnecessary burden probably on the event promoter or the host, because now they got to pay for an internet connection for your 1 hour presentation that cost them a few $100s, when you could have just put screenshots or something in your presentation if you're doing a PowerPoint and covered the information just as well. But you didn't do that because you thought it would be cool to go online. So I would never do something online in the internet for a presentation.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen that. I've absolutely seen that. And it's this, and not just the host and the producer, but the tech team. They have to hire a tech team because there's going to be a problem, and the tech team then has to run up to the front or run to the back and solve it. And so, great tips. Yes, they may sound simplistic, but they're things that people often overlook and just don't bring to the forefront. So thank you so much. All right, let's dig into, and you wrote a book called Mistakes Authors Make, and let's dig into that and 5 of the key mistakes that authors make. First off, what are they?
All right, so the number one on my list is something I don't hear a lot of people talk about, honestly, and that is the consumability of a book.
Perfect.
When I like to go in the bookstore and look at marketing book, and if I pick one up off the shelf and I look at that first chapter and it's 25 or 30 pages long, it's like, oh my God, this looks like too much work to get through one chapter. So I'm probably not going to buy that book. Or if I'm at home and I pick up a book and maybe I want to do a little bit of reading before bed or whatever, and I look at it and the next chapter is 20 pages long, it's like, maybe not. Maybe I'll get to that tomorrow or whatever. And the lesson there is, if you can't get people to consume your book, the chance of them coming back and buying your next book or your follow-up product or service that you may offer goes way, way down. I mean, think about who's the master of the short chapter. I think chapters should be no more than 5 to 7 pages. But think about the author James Patterson. I mean, if you've ever read a James Patterson book, his chapters are 2 or 3 pages. So you read three, well, I can read three more, I can read three more, I can read three more. Next thing you know, you've read those 30 or 40 pages and probably the whole damn book, honestly. Because it's consumable. People want to feel that sense of progress, that they're getting through things and making positive steps. And so figure out how you can lay out your book to make it so that they get that sense of accomplishment, that they want to keep moving forward because they are able to consume your information. I mean, things like, make sure your paragraphs aren't too long. I think paragraphs ought to be no more than, 3, 4, 5 sentences, and then they got a little break. Figure out what you can do in terms of giving some eye breaks in there. So whether it's pull quotes or a graph or a picture or something, just to give the eye a break from straight blocks of text after text after text. And think about your audience, Melody Ann. If you're selling a book to, seniors, well, don't do it in 9-point font or whatever because you wanted to reduce your page count. I mean, so make it something that, again, they can consume and give it in a format and a layout that is user-friendly so that they will read your book and then they will want to read your next book or buy your course or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And I'm going to add to that is when I'm working with clients, the content is really important. And, there's lots of pieces you can put in. You want insights like aha moments where people go, oh, and they stop and think. And you want stories where they get, pulled into the story that and then they can relate to that. And you want encouragement. You want to make sure you're encouraging your reader, not just this person who is nothing like you did this amazing thing. It's just, and you can too, right? Like there's encouragement. I think there's a lot of content pieces that can go in as well. Sprinkling your authority through it. There's lots that I to pick from, and always making sure that the content isn't just this is the information, this is the next information, and this is the next information, but instead, things that build them up and make them think. And
I also think it's very important to think about the overall length of your book. I mean, I think a how-to or business book should be no more than 120 to 150 pages. Now, I do have, the Mistakes Authors book ended up being longer than that, so it fell outside my norm, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary to throw every bit of information that in a single book. Yeah. You bet if you have don't write War and Peace. Figure out how you might break that into 3 or 4 books. So again, that they're likely to consume it and then want to get that next book. So
exactly. Yeah. Brilliant. What's number 2, Brett?
All right. Number 2, I think, is that you need to recognize, particularly if you're in the nonfiction space, that your book, while you would love to be a New York Times or a Wall Street bestseller, that book is primarily a marketing tool and the lead into whatever your back-end product or service is. So we'd love to sell thousands and thousands of books, which is wonderful. But, you're probably not going to hit that New York Times bestseller list. That's the Joe Polishes of the world or the Tony Robbins of the world who have the, big sway that can do that. But you got to recognize that book for what it is. And if you think you're going to get rich on book sales, you need to get a wake-up call and realize that isn't the case. I've seen people honestly give away books, Melody Ann. They'll do it as a free plus shipping offer, but they give away books because they know their back-end numbers and what they can convert. And they understand the concept of the lifetime value of the reader. And if they can get that book in somebody's hands, then they're worth this much more to them. And they'll give away books essentially all day long because they know they can convert on the back end. So, this kind of leapfrogs right into number 3, and that is make sure that your book has, what I would call bounce backs in it. So what are the calls to action in the book that are going to drive them from that book to your website so that you can capture their name and email address and then do follow-up communication with them to get them involved in some other things that you offer. We talked about Amazon earlier, and yes, you should definitely be still selling your books on Amazon. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be on Amazon. I'm just saying if you have a platform, then you should be driving that traffic to your website versus Amazon. But you need to be on Amazon, and because you will sell a number of books and maybe more books still through Amazon than via your own website, it's so critical to have those bounce backs in the book that will drive them to you. It could be a special report. It could be an audio interview of you as the author. It could be a video. I mean, you're only limited by your own creativity in terms of what you can do as bounce back mechanisms. I mean, and even if you're a fiction author, I think it's important to think about what you can include in that book to capture their information so that you have a ready list waiting for you. So when you come out with book number 2 or book number 3, you can email that list and say, hey, the book's now available, go out and get it. So for a fiction author, that bounce back could be an interview with the author, why you wrote the book. It could be an expansion on a character in the book, a little bit more backstory than you had in the book. If it's a science fiction type book or a third world, a Hogwarts type of thing, it could be get the PDF of the map of the land or whatever that you can picture where this is happening and all that stuff. So even if you're a fiction author, I think there's things that you can do with your book to make it a bounce back and marketing tool for you, and not just they're going to read it and they're done.
Yeah, exactly. So, to kind of wrap that up, a lot of authors spend so much time selling a book rather than building a relationship with someone who could buy multiple books, buy other products, buy other services. So instead of focusing on selling a book, focus on building a relationship that will lead to more products and services. For example, I know an author. She has her books, but then she also has her products. She does, mugs and T-shirts, and based on, her poetry and her short stories. And so she has, she sells product on top of that. So she needs to build a relationship with people and get them excited about what she's doing in order to do that, rather than I'm looking to sell a book.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Melody Ann. And particularly if you're a fiction author, merch is a great thing to consider as an upsell to the book itself. T-shirts, mugs, whatever. I mean, and there's services out there where you can connect, and they only produce it if you sell it. So you don't have to buy a bunch of inventory of mugs and T-shirts and all that. So, create some swag or whatever related to your book that fans might be willing to buy as an additional revenue channel as an author.
Exactly. So we've done consumability, we've done lifetime value. What's next, Brett?
All right. So next is, I think authors, by and large, Melody Ann, are very weak at beginning to market that book at the right time. And you should begin marketing that book 6 months, a year out in advance of its release date. I mean, they get so excited about the writing the book and all that they're doing nothing ahead of time. It's like, all right, now the book is written. Now I just need to start marketing the book. No, you need to start marketing the book way back then. Start building that list. Offer content to the people that follow you and that want to follow you, that get them involved in your world and get them excited about that book launch. So when the book launches, you can have a greater chance of success. I mean, I say 6 months. It could be even longer than that. You can be building that list. So, and keep in mind also that, there's, quote, different launch dates. I'm getting ready to come out with a new book fairly soon. It'll be available mid-March. And all the traffic I'm going to drive initially will be to my own website for author signed copies and all that. But it's not released into bookstores and, through other channels until October. I mean, so there's a 6-month gap between 7-month gap, if I can do the math, between when it's going to be available via me versus being out in the general public, so to speak, at bookstores, Amazon, etc. So start marketing way sooner. Figure out, get a website up, start collecting email names and addresses, which means in order to do that, you got to come up with what we call a lead magnet or an ethical bribe that people will want to opt in to receive. But start building that list way, way in advance of when the book's going to come out so that you have a hyper audience ready to buy when that book officially launches.
Yeah. I love that ethical bribe. That's really great. Yeah. So, what I always say, as soon as you start writing, you have something to talk about. As soon as you start putting words on paper, you have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Right. I'm writing a book. It's about this. Today I was writing about this topic and, whatever it is, there's so many possibilities. So that's great. Thank you very much for that. What's next? Are we on so consumability, lifetime value, marketing. What's next?
What number do we want to be on? We're on number 17.
We're on number 4.
All right. So I mean, we talked about other products and services earlier, Melody Ann, but
Mhm.
I mean, one thing that I've seen, which is a big mistake in my opinion, is that authors get so excited about getting the book done and putting it out there, and they recognize in their mind that it's supposed to be a lead generator and lead to other products and services, but they don't put those other products and services in place for when the book comes out. I mean, there was a well-known book a few years ago. I think it was called The Ultimate Sales Machine or something to that effect from a guy named Chet Holmes. Very good book, but in the book he had a lot of calls to action. Go to this website to get this additional content or whatever. Half of them didn't work. The links didn't work. They were 404 error pages that you went to, and so he missed out on a massive opportunity because he didn't have those back end pieces in place for when the book launched. So if your book is a marketing tool, as it should be in the nonfiction world, well, you got to figure out in advance, what is this book leading to, and put those things into place, whether it's the structure of a coaching program or a mastermind or a membership site or whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
while it's great that you're excited that you got your book done, don't jump the gun in terms of putting it out there if it's designed to lead to other things when those other things aren't ready to go.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is put all the pieces in place. So here's the book, but then there's the the email list, the lead magnet, the ethical bribe, as you call it, the other products and services, or your swag or whatever else. The sooner you get all of that in place, the sooner you have a complete business model that you can then build on as you write another book or create more products and services. That's what I hear you saying?
And I think you heard exactly right. So
Good, excellent. Thank you. And to be perfectly honest, it's one of the things I see where authors really, really struggle, right? They're so, as you say, they're so focused on the book, and then the book's out there, and it's like a gopher who's just put his head up and he's looking around, like, what's next, right? And that can really slow down your success, and it takes away from the excitement of the launch, right? So because the excitement of the launch is just about the book, where it could be about the book and the course and the t-shirt and the mug and the all the other stuff, right? You're missing out on that piece of that launch. It can be so exciting. Perfect. Thank you, Brett.
So next on my list is, remember that a book is a business, and you've got to think of it in that terms. I mean, if you treat it as a hobby, I mean, if you want to write a memoir because you want to give it to, your family and friends and all that, great, go ahead and do that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But if you're truly serious about using your book as a business tool and getting your message out there, then you got to think of it as a business. So that means you got to plan on marketing behind it. You can't just write it, throw it out there, and think that the world's going to magically be attracted to it. I mean, does it happen? Yeah, rarely, 1 in a million type thing. But I mean, it takes work, and it is a business, and that involves putting in steps and putting in process and doing the things that you need to do to build a business. I mean, one of the things, you're familiar with the book, I'm sure, Melody Ann, and I'm going to draw a blank now, of course, on what the name of it is, but Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth.
Yes, love it. Love the
All
book.
right. So, it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day running of your business that you're never spending any time building your business. And so you got to make sure you're crafting out some time every day to do something proactive marketing-wise to build your book business, to build the book brand or whatever. I mean, it's a massive mistake that authors make in terms of not thinking of it as a business and not truly being prepared to invest the time daily to what they can do to build that business.
Yeah.
So
perfect. I love that. That's such an important lesson, and it's another area where authors get lost. And I think the actual issue there is, not for everyone, but there's a like a fear around, selling, right? There's a fear around, coming across as salesy, and this is supposed to be art, and except we need to sell our art, right? We need to ship our, as Seth Godin says, right? You create something, you ship it. That's the point. And then you're either people love it or you reject it, and that's okay. You build something else and you ship it. And shipping is part of shipping is to show it off to the world and in a sense promote it, sell it. And that can be very scary for people. Yeah. Thank you. Just for everyone watching, if you want to get your book shipped through Brett's Ship Your Book business, it is at shipyourbook.com. I think that's what you said about that was really brilliant. So I just wanted to put out the URL for people who are interested in that. You were talking about all the benefits there are from doing your own shipping, your own product fulfillment, but not doing it yourself, but hiring it out, of course. All right. I want to just, you mentioned something earlier, and I just wanted to kind of come back around to that a little bit. And I'm going to reword it slightly. Authors wear too many hats, right? They do all those little jobs like product fulfillment that they could be saving money on and doing the big things. Can you talk a little bit about your experience as an author? What do you really focus on, and what do you hire out?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned, Melody Ann, fulfillment is one of the things that authors need to look at getting off their plate as soon as possible, because it is, as we said, a time, value proposition. But, if you're a speaker or an author, you're probably wearing a lot of hats, because, you're probably your travel planner and your shipping clerk and your content creator, author. I mean, your website designer, your website maintenance person. I mean, you probably got 20 different hats you're wearing. And you've got to really figure out, number one, what you're truly passionate about. And number two, what you're really good at. And then anything that doesn't fall in the area of passion or really good at, and even some of those things you're really good at, you probably need to get off your plate. I mean, I have a good friend, a guy named Armin Moore, who's an outstanding internet marketer. And he still designs his own graphics for his websites because he loves to do it. And could he pay somebody else a lot less and his time is worth to do it? Sure. But it's a passion of his, and if that's you, then that's okay. But recognize that it's a trade-off, and you're giving up time from something else that you could be doing that may be a better use of your time in many circumstances. So figure out which hats fit on your head properly. Figure out which ones you need to jettison and get a better hat, or remove the hat altogether, and then figure out how you can incorporate all those things together to advance your business forward in the best way possible.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. That's really well said. And it's about figuring out what the real work is, what your real work is. My real work is content creation. My real work is whatever, fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, everything else can be handed off, and then choosing what you're going to hand off first, second, third as your business grows, right? So Thank you. What are you working on now? You working on a book? You got a new book coming out? What's going on?
Yeah, so my focus these days, Melody Ann, is being behind the scenes for about 25 years in the speaking industry. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the industry. I probably witnessed maybe 2,000 speakers in person over that time, from attending events, handling the back of the room at events, etc. And I've seen what speakers do well, and honestly, what many of them fail miserably at. I mean, I've seen speakers make mistakes that literally cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And boy, I could tell you some more stories. But so, my focus these days is on helping aspiring speakers, whether it's a business owner or an entrepreneur who's built a successful business and now they feel like they have a message they want to share with the world, or maybe it's a wellness coach or an energy healer and they have a powerful message they want to get out there. Well, I mean, the fact is that they want to become a speaker. They need to become a speaker. But the problem is they haven't a freaking clue how the speaking industry really works. Yeah. So my mission today is to help people who are in that boat, who have a message they want to get out there, but learn how to build a speaking business in the right way and avoid the things that can trip you up, and help them shorten that learning curve, because going through the school of hard knocks to learn anything is a painful and an expensive lesson. And the bottom line is you'll probably spend more over time doing it that way than finding a mentor or somebody to help you who's been down the path before and can teach you the ropes. So I'm currently working with aspiring speakers, helping them learn about their speaking business and the pieces that they need to put into place in order to have greater success.
Yeah, yeah. And you had a gift to offer around that 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to create a profitable speaking business. And if I understand, you can get it at brettridgway.com.
That's exactly right. And that is what we called earlier in the show, the ethical bribe, so to speak. So if you
Yes,
go to brettridgway.com,
exactly.
Yep. So very good.
Thanks, Brett. Do you have another book coming out? Or are you done?
I do. I actually just finished up number 8, and it is called How to Build a Profitable Speaking Business. And it is actually releasing, let's get over the camera.
There it is.
It is releasing mid-March via my website, and then through the bookstores and all that, not until October. So, I will be driving that initial traffic to me, like we talked about, so that I can capture the information and all that. And that book is designed to be a marketing tool with bounce backs in it. And it will lead into an 8-week masterclass called From Novice Speaker to Stage Ready Pro, which will then lead into a couple of different things. Number one will be a higher ticket mastermind, as well as a suite of done-for-you services. So those speakers who want to get out there, but they don't want to do their website or their social media posting or whatever, we'll take that on for them as part of the process.
Yeah, perfect. And where can people reach you?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to start is certainly at brettridgway.com. And as you see on the screen there, 1 T in Brett and no E in Ridgway. So I even left out my middle name because I don't have one. So that's all there is. You can, find out what's going on. There's more information about the masterclass there, certainly, and that's where you get the ethical bribe. I also have recently started a Spotlight on Speaking podcast that I'm recording episodes for, that will be officially launched in about 10 days or whatever. So I got about 20 episodes in the can, and I would invite Melody Ann to be a guest on my podcast too, because I know you get out there and do speaking, and you probably have some good stories to share. But that's at spotlightonspeaking.com. And then if you're interested in finding out specifically when the book releases, just go to buildaprofitablespeakingbusiness.com. Leave me your name and email address, and then I can get a hold of you when it's officially out there and ready for you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brett. I really enjoyed having you on the show today. You've provided so much value. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Melody Ann. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you came. Thank you for joining us today at Author Nation. Author Nation is here to provide you with the path from idea to published book through a community of like-minded professionals working on their books to change the world just like you. You can join us at authornation.community. It is scrolling past you right now. And I will see you next week. We will be talking to Deborah Reynolds about image, not just image, the physical, but having your values in your book, the image of your book, so that you can be successful. We will see you then.